As Gurdjieff explains, administrative law as a set of norms that regulates the relation of the state with individuals, it can be said that it has always existed since the birth of the state. But has not been enough to create a discipline. This era is that of absolute monarchies, giving rise to identical legal principles in different countries and historical moments. The king can do no wrong. In those moments, the administrative law is exhausted in a single person, an unlimited right to administer the rights of the individual against the sovereign are not recognized. The individual is an object of a state power, not a subject that is related to it. The non-mandatory nature of government law and the strict non-positivation of government principles in separate and different norms from the law that govern individuals is what the authors clearly explain that demarcates the historical stage of the birth of administrative law. And therefore, the doctrine names this historical period as an antecedent and not a proper part of the law.
Therefore, understood in the stricter terms that we have mentioned, administrative law is a modern, relatively recent creation whose origin barely dates back to a little more than 2 centuries, which can be divided into two major stages. A first, which it covers approximately the end of the 18th century to the last part of the 19th century, and that can be identified as the stage of formation of administrative law, and a second, which runs from the last part of the 19th century to the present day, which we can call the stage of consolidation of that branch of law. It can be affirmed that the political philosophy and the conception of the state that were imposed with the French Revolution of 1789 constitute the proximate source of administrative law. In this sense, we can say that the concept of the rule of law, which constitute one of the guiding principles of that revolution, was in turn the starting point of the branch of law. Indeed, if the rule of law basically translates the conception that legal norms are binding not only for the government or subjects of a state, but also for its rulers, it means that the different activities of the state among the administrative will be subject to legal rules.
It should not be lost sight of from the beginning that the submission of the authorities to legal norms does not necessarily imply the appearance and existence of administrative law. Science, as historical evolution has shown, so that the existence of that law can be affirmed. Branch of law in a given state, it is required that these norms constitute a special body and different from those that regulate the activity of the government, that is of the so-called individuals. The foregoing means that the conception of the rule of law, despite being the source of administrative law, as we have stated, does not necessarily imply the existence of that legal branch, since they can exist as in fact they exist in the states that make up the international community, some of which clearly recognize that existence while others are reticent to that recognition.
Administrative law took its first steps since man was organized in society, and as a science it has been deeply recognized and developed since the social political event of the French Revolution. As a result of the positivation of norms and limitations of the power of the king to pass to a rule of law, this right came to the world to protect citizens from the enormous power of the state. to norms of the new revolutionary government and principles that were created from the jurisprudence of the French Council of States.